We'll send data afterwards, but certainly can find job posting data at CyberSN. And what that means is what we have been measuring for the last 3 years is every job that's posted in the United States per functional roles of cybersecurity, which there are 45. And we track those results. And so the nice thing is, of course, we know job postings don't represent exactly what's happening in the market based on people posting for various reasons. But when you look at 3 years of data, you can normalize sort of the posting for multiple locations and all those things. So when we look at this data, what we know is that the large majority of the roles are in what we call the defense category, and that is in particularly two roles, security engineer and security analyst. And within a security analyst, there are lots of different functions of what people do. But those are the top two roles in 2024 that people were posting jobs for, which also mirrors what we see in our talent acquisition. Next is DevSecOps. A really interesting thing to see in 2024 next was privacy attorney, as we're seeing a lot more privacy roles come on board. It makes a lot of sense. We're a bit behind than, let's say the UK or what have you, but it's coming, it's happening, which is really cool. The next role was security architect. Then it was security manager. I could keep going. And again, this data is published at CyberSN and we'll send afterwards. But I can confidently say that the majority of the roles that are out there are technical-ish roles. And so while we see a huge uptick in GRC and that industry is growing and not necessarily deemed having to have technical background, it is the only function that's growing as fast as the technical roles are, and which I find also something important for people to be thinking about. So I'll stop there.
Well, and I happened to see one question that was posted in the chat. People asked about, but what about entry level roles?
Yeah.
So do you want to comment on that? We'll do some Q&A later, but it
Yeah.
seems very appropriate and timely.
Well, the definition of entry level, first of all, I think is the first place to start. And what most people describe as entry level means no cyber work experience. And that actual persona is the hardest persona to get in because cyber teams are under budgeted, understaffed, under resourced, which means they don't have a lot of time to train and help. New to cyber is way I like to say no cyber experience is better, way to say this. If you have cyber experience and you're in IT or you're in software development, which by the way, you may have cyber experience and you're in IT and you're in software development and you don't know it. So if you're in IT or you're in software, go make a profile at CyberSN and it'll show you where you do cyber. But if you're completely new to cyber with work experience, then it's definitely the analyst roles are where you can get in, and what you want to be thinking about is where can you go be revenue and not cost, because very few people are hiring on the cost side. And so that's managed service providers, consulting firms, there's lots of them, MSSPs, as I mentioned, the government, the federal government, state government, those places are the place to focus. And then the Fortune 250, because the Fortune 250 does have much more money to invest in cyber teams. And so they are doing more of the entry level, new to cyber hiring, but certainly underneath the Fortune 250, you don't see that happening a whole lot. So hopefully that helps, and the Career Center will help too.
Great, thank you. And Sharika?
I would just mention cloud solution architects are also in demand. software developers. I think Deidre did touch on software developers, but as far as I just wanted to touch on the entry level question just a little bit. I would say to consider looking at companies that offer programs like some companies call them professional development programs, where if you're a college graduate, they'll allow you to come in entry level, and then they'll put you on a rotation, maybe 6 to 12 month rotations, and you'll get to work in different divisions of cyber or different divisions of IT. And then, that's a way for you to get experience and skills. And then you can decide, which area you like best and which area is the best fit for you. And then you can, say, I want this to be my home, and then that'll be your home. But look for companies that offer those opportunities.
Great, thank you. And I'm going to turn it over to Rhonda.
Well, thank you so much. Yes, and I think we have a poll here coming up.
All right. I just launched it.
Thank you. Yeah, so if you could respond to that, we'll get your heavy career interests in your favorite cyber role. And thanks so much to our panelists who really talked about what got them started. And I hope that was inspirational to you, and that you can see in just our panelists some role models that can help shape your way forward. We're really covering down on a lot of it today. I think you've heard IT, artificial intelligence, cyber, data science, STEM, a wide range of industries that they're supported. And what that offers to each of you is opportunity, right? You hear all of our panelists really talking about no matter if you're on defense, offense, or you're in some supporting enterprise or corporate related cyber role, there is a place for you.
All right. Well, I think I'm going to end that poll, if you guys are okay, and share those results. So you should be able to see the results. All right. Ready when you are, Rhonda.
Well, thank you so much. I cannot see the results, so can you speak to them, please?
Oh, sure. The
you.
question was, which one is not a role the panelists shared in the jobs data discussion? And AI prompt writer was the #1 answer.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, and even if we didn't hear us talking about that, I think for each and every one of you, that might be your golden ticket to the future, because it oftentimes not only does it help you in your cyber offense or cyber defense, it helps you with privacy, GRC, and many other roles as well. So let's go ahead and move to the next role. And we'll start this off, or the next question, we'll start this off with Jessica. Jessica, what soft skills or leadership qualities have helped you the most in your career?
Well, let me try to take a different take on this one, because I think we hear a lot some of the productivity skills and communication, leadership, etc. I would say more of the cognitive skills, and you see this in the gaming world. Now, realize I'm all about gaming, right? So the cognitive skills we don't talk a lot about, but their importance, I think, is that they really help us differentiate and climb the ladder. So we're talking about our cognitive endurance, if you will, our ability to focus for long periods of time. We're talking about developing our intuition and our instinct by knowing what the indicators and warnings from a cyber standpoint that we're seeing oftentimes and what they mean, so that we can try to anticipate and get in front of problems. I think that's also, I would say, more around emotional intelligence and understanding the environments you're in and situational leadership. Developing your leadership skills so that you have a variety of different tools in any environment that works for the people that you're around. Just to try to look at some alternative answers, if you will, than what we typically hear.
Thank you. I love it, Jessica. Right? Just kind of let's put that model upside down and look at it through a different lens. So thank you so much, Jessica. Yes. So Sharika, how about you, ma'am? From your perspective, what soft skills or leadership qualities have helped you the most in your career?
For me, adaptability. The ability to just adjust in new situations and when circumstances change. I would say I haven't really had the ability to lead in the civilian world, but on the military side, yes. And just not even having the title of being a leader, but if you have the ability to guide and influence, you're a leader. Communication skills, of course, we always talk about that, but communication skills are very important because you have to be able to communicate what you want to say to different, types of people or different people that have different understandings of, what you're trying to deliver. So yeah, that's what's helped me.
Thank you. Well, this is a well-rounded response, really, to the multifaceted diamonds that are you on our panel. So attendees, hear what might help you move forward faster in your careers. Well, I think we will kick off this next question with Deidre, and that's what specific technical skills do you feel are essential for success in this field? IT, AI, cybersecurity, and data science.
The basics of the basics are the most important. How everything connects to each other, understanding where it all starts and how it moves. So old school, I call networking. Called lots of things today, Internet of Things. How are things connected is really important, as we all work in so many different disciplines that have to work together. Everybody really needs to understand how information flows and how information accesses. And then from there, it's coding. It helps a ton when you can write scripts and you can do some quick automations and make things happen. If we're going to say technical skills matter, that's what it means to me.
Thank you. And I think, in their attendees is really, analytical skills, problem solving skills, decision-making skills, and teamwork skills as well, just to kind of bolster on that last question. And so, Miss Sharika, when you think about this question for you, what do you see and what are you hearing the most specific technical skills are that are essential in your cyber and STEAM world?
Definitely what Deidre said about understanding the foundations. You have to understand how those ones and zeros get to talking. If you don't understand that, then you have to. It's important. For the IT world, I would say you have to understand the different flavors of Windows, also Red Hat, the basics of how the operating systems work. And now, I mean, cloud computing platforms, we have to understand that essentially they're the same, but everybody just has their own spin on it. AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud, it's pretty much all the same, but everybody has their own way that they want to present it. But that's what I think of.
Thank you so much. So yes, there's so much there with regard to not only the functional skills and roles, but the infrastructures that we're needing to be cognizant of and spun up on. And good thing you're, again, surrounded by panelists and with an organization that helps you get certified and moving forward in that area. So let me pass the ball back to Leanne to talk about navigating challenges.
Hey, Rhonda, if I could interject, we have a question that it's about soft skills versus hard skills, but Matthew's asking, can we have a feminist critique of the idea of soft skills versus hard skills? I think soft skills are associated more often with women and secondary to hard or technical skills associated with men, and end up being a barrier to women in STEM. And he's saying, can we get past this dichotomy?
I guess I would disagree with him. Looking at the Global World Forum survey that's just been out is, while technical skills are key, what differentiates you in getting the job is going to be, well, you know, soft skills, power skills, whatever you want to call them. Those are the differentiated skills. Technical skills can be learned from everybody. But the power skills, if you will, those take experience and knowing how to apply them. So I think that organizations and companies worldwide are starting to see the value in looking beyond the technical. Not that technical is not important. I'm just saying that in a group of technical people that you're interviewing, they're really looking for the person who can problem solve, that can take initiative, that can lead, in addition to the technical skills. And I think that's really where women start to shine, is sure, check the box on the technical skills, but really double down on those soft skills.
I just want to add to that. When you're doing, we do a lot of like executive cyber exercises at SANS where we put people in a, you know, pretend breach situation. Having all the technical expertise in the room does not matter if they don't know how to communicate and if somebody doesn't take the lead. And so you really see a demand for that type of skill set when you're in a crisis. And in today's world, where a lot of people are still working from home, they're great at the technical stuff, but what do you do when you have to talk to each other or make decision? What reasoning do you use, and have you shared that with others? And it's always fascinating for me to see it play out, because I'm like, wow, they've never had these conversations before now. So I think talking about those power skills for all is really, really key to how an organization is going to function in a time of a crisis.
Yeah, the power skills is really resonating with our group. We could see it in the chat and the Q&A. Thanks, Matthew, for the question.
And Carol, I think you have another poll in terms of career level, right?
Yeah, it was the job. Well, yeah, let me do that real quick.
Okay.
And you should see a poll asking about your career, what level you are in your career. So if you ran to the kitchen, run back, hit the poll. Bring back your drink of choice. All righty, I'm going to end this poll. And very interesting results with our audience today.
Okay. So let's go on and talk about challenges. And I did want to say, thank you, Carol and Patricia, since you're monitoring the chat, just as you just did with the question, that Carol, you just brought up. If you see something that's very timely, we don't want to wait until the end. I think it's really, helpful for our audience to be able to kind of, bring in one or two questions that the audience is posing. So thank you.
Yeah.
So,
sorry, on that note,
Okay.
there is an open question out there and is relevant to the topic we just spoke about. It is, if one is in the IT audit assurance field with less technical knowledge and experience, what recommendations do you have to help them gain more skills and knowledge in cyber? So I don't know if one of the panelists wants to take that.
I can take that. I would take a look at, in addition to looking for credentials and certifications, if you will, I would start following some major podcasters out there and know what's happening in the cybersecurity field. And there's so much tech in our lives nowadays. Do not hit me for saying this, but take time to read. I think we forget what it was like 10, 15 years ago, right? Where we actually took time to read books on to gain expertise. There's a lot of value in that. I think somebody once was quoted saying, if you read 2 books on a particular topic, you're an expert. So I would say take time to read. And then lastly, games. Try Hack Me, Hack the Box, Bug Crowd. Any of these kinds of programs offer an excellent opportunity for you to shore up some of your cyber skills in a fun and innovative way.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So now we're going to turn to challenges, and I'm going to start with you, Shelley. So our question is, what challenges have you faced as a woman in tech, and how have you overcome them?
Well, first off, as a woman in tech, when I started in the industry, I was very aware that there wasn't a lot of people there that looked like me. There was not a lot of females there. So I had to recognize that and know that when you're in that kind of an environment, there are people there that think differently, and there are people there that maybe don't think that you belong there, or there are people there that are going to say some things that aren't appropriate. And how do I want to handle that? So I've always been, believe it or not, pretty outspoken, and said what's on my mind. And, there's little microaggression comments sometimes where you just need to make them aware. Say, hey, you probably shouldn't be saying that. I remember going to a NetWars event one time, and it's in a dark room, drinking beer, eating chicken wings. And I'm like, what about some wine and some strawberries maybe, and some cheese, and turn the lights up a bit maybe? And they're like, Shelly. And I'm like, well, as a female, and there's only 3 of us here out of 100, I don't want to walk into the middle of a room full of men in the dark. I just don't. And so you really have to make them aware, because sometimes they're just not aware. And what I have found is that, pay disparity, I always ask for what I wanted. And I always look them in the eye and say, can you tell me that you are treating me fairly compared to my brothers who are on the team? I always called them my brothers. And if my boss could say yes, and I trusted my boss, I believed them. But I always put that comment on the table to make them aware that they should be thinking that way. I've always had a strong network, and sometimes my network included other men. Always interested in how do we get more women, more diversity into any tech event that I'm going to, any conference that I'm attending. I studied sociology, so I'm always looking around the room to say who's here and who's not here, and how do we get more of them in the room. So, one of the things I say about when you're looking at a challenge, and we all have challenges, it's like, what am I going to do to fix it? And this is what I've told everyone that's gone through the interview process, and they want to tell me about how they were raised and their mother and their father. And I said, no one in a job interview is ever going to ask you about your mother or your father. You need to decide how you want to face this world. And you need to decide and recognize when you're being challenged and how you're going to respond to it. And if you feel like you're alone, then you build yourself a battle team. And you bring other women, and you bring other people with you. You go where they are. You seek mentorship. You go places where you can develop more technical skills, more communication skills, have more conversations, learn about self-advocacy, build your confidence, know that you belong, and then be one of those people that promotes diversity and inclusion in the workplace. Making those comments, I wear bright pink blazers sometimes, because I know I'm going somewhere where it's going to be all men in dark clothes. And they always say, Shelly, you're always so bright. And I'm like, that, I'm just making you aware that there's not a lot of me in this room. And they kind of laugh, but they get it. So think of ways that you can pass that messaging around, and how you're going to handle the challenges.
Great. Thank you for that great advice. And Jessica, would you like to share and talk about some of the challenges you've faced?
It's funny, over my career, which has been way too long, the challenges change. And looking at the latest poll where we have the newbies, the intermediate and advanced, I would say when I was first getting started in my career, it was all about being heard as a woman. And I hear that from a lot of women too, is like, I have great ideas and I share them, and I swear nobody listens to me. And then a guy mentions the same thing 2 minutes later, and they're like, oh, that's a wonderful idea. So, honing my skills in communication was key, and making my communications incredibly direct, very short and succinct, and to the point, and not being afraid to repeat myself in different ways, to further get the communication across, was probably early in the career. As I went more into my leadership and project management, program management period of life, if you will, it was not so much climbing the career, believe it or not, because so many women had open pathways for me at that point. It was managing men that were older and more technical than me. It's funny, our earlier conversation, straight up, y'all, I am not technical, and I've had over 25 years in cybersecurity. Never been technical. I mean, I'm more technical than most probably in the regular fields, but not what we were discussing before. So it was very important to me to be able to articulate my value proposition in a room. And that's what I learned, I would say, at that stage. And then I think as I moved more into entrepreneurship, running my business, taking on more leadership at the more senior and advanced levels, it was all about taking more risks. And I love that battle team thing. I just absolutely love it. That was fantastic, Shelley. Because when you're taking on more risks, you need that battle team with you. So I would say there was a couple, and just in case there's a guy out there who's gonna throw the question out that we're avoiding, right? The challenges of being a woman in a male-dominated field, straight up. We all find our ways throughout our careers of handling it in different ways, if you will. Mine has always been humor. I am not afraid to call a man out if they are mansplaining, if they are, let's just say, creating awkward situations. I'll do it with humor. That's my approach. That's why I feel confident. I don't try to be, what do you call it, a hostile or create conflict. I just call it out. Sometimes I just jokingly say, okay, red flag, moving on, kind of thing, just to soften it up. And basically that's a warning, don't go there again. So just to try to handle that elephant in the room, if you will.
Great, thank you. And so what advice do you have for women? And actually, well, Jessica, I just want to first, I guess, start with you and see if you have anything to add, but I think you've already talked about it a little bit and just talking about the challenges, but what advice do you have for women who feel intimidated entering male-dominated tech fields?
So, I was thinking about that. I never looked at cybersecurity when I was getting into it as being a male-dominated field, so I was intimidated about it. So it's hard for me to really answer that question. I think if I was looking at newbies or a crowd of young women coming out of careers in college and they were looking at that, I would say it's a different world nowadays. Get out there, do it anyways, if you will. We have so much value to offer. And particularly in cybersecurity, when you get in the I would say the hacker crowd, right? The ethical hackers, et cetera, you're going to have the most male dominated areas. And it's not so much that you're a woman anymore. It's that old, are you technical or not? Do you have the skills or not? And as long as you can continue to show your value and put yourself out there, I think that's key. I would try to focus them less on being intimidated and being more authentic to themselves. Keep yourself authentic, stay who you are, and focus on your value and your power. And that's the advice I just gave my daughter who just joined the Army, which still male dominated.
Great. And Sharika, would you like to share?
Ditch perfection. I mean, of course, women, we want everything to be perfect. And I mean, coming from a military background, I want everything to be dress right, dress in order, ditch perfection, because it will make you crazy. Embrace your failures. You are going to fail. Embrace it. Yeah, that's about it.
Somebody's asking, so what's wrong with perfection?
What's right with perfection? Nothing.
I don't think there's anything wrong with perfection, so I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and I know that there's no one harder on me than me. And some days I wish I was less a perfectionist. So I don't think there's anything wrong with being who you are. I think the key is that you know who you are. So, me as a perfectionist, when I come home, the shoes have to be lined up perfectly at the door. My husband is not a perfectionist. He throws his shoes off all over the place and he's just as happy as I am. I just have to understand that's who he is. I'm not going to change him. I'm not going to kick him out of the house for that. I have to deal with that. So in life, when you're working, create some male allies. There are a lot of male, I find, even more so, I think, than even when I started 13 years ago in this particular industry, who want more of us to be successful and are happy to guide us, to be our mentors, to work with us, to respond with us. And so just look for those people because they're there in a bigger way in today's world.
Great, thank you. Patricia and Carol, any questions in the chat that we should address before we move on?
There is a question about certifications. The question is, what certifications or resources can you provide for someone on the entry level in cybersecurity? So somebody who's new to cybersecurity, for some of these certifications, you need to have some years of experience. So what do you recommend?
I can start. So for IT, I would say to learn the foundations, I'd start with the A+ and Network Plus certifications. They're from CompTIA. If you want to get a little bit more advanced, then I would say certifications that are related to Cisco, which is Cisco CCNA, Cisco CCNP. As far as resources, there's a website called cybery.it. I think now some of the classes there's a charge for them, but I think a good amount of them are free to learn the basics. Cybery.it, CYBRARY, like library, but cybery. And I think that's a good start for entry level.
Certainly look at the SANS website. There's a lot of free academies that you can apply for. There's free scholarships that come with GIAC certifications as well. If you're looking at if I was looking at a career right now in cyber and I was looking at going to post-secondary, I would go to SANS Technology Institute. I would sign up for probably maybe a certificate program or a degree program, and that's where I would start. Honestly, they train me course by course. If I flunk a course, I can't take the next one, so I don't have to give them all my money up front. I only pay as I go. You take 2 of the courses and you're guaranteed to get a job with your GIAC certification. I think if you're looking at certifications and how do you get started, register for the ISACA conference coming up in April. Get out in front of people, because there's all kinds of organizations, companies, Cisco, Microsoft, that they offer scholarships and opportunities. You just need to show up at these places and start having conversations, and you'll find a ton of resources.
Great, thank you. And Rhonda, turning it over to you.
So now we'll move to looking forward and how you can really amplify your career. So we'll start with Deidre. And could you share with us, kind of in this future trends and opportunities theme, what emerging technologies or roles do you feel women and or men should focus on to future-proof their careers going forward?
Future-proof, holy goodness. Yeah. I hope I can come up with that. That'll also win the lottery. That being said, since there's a lot of experienced professionals with us today, it is very true that the AI economy is upon us, and that we all should really understand what that means and seek to be experts in the understanding of AI, the implementation of AI, the use cases, and really stay in tune. And we will not so much, in my opinion, necessarily see a ton of new types of jobs. What we're going to see is jobs being supported by AI to be more efficient. We are in an era of inefficiency that is derived from digital separation that we all have, as well as derived from the complexity of the attack surface. And so organizations showing ROI, organizations showing how security is benefiting a company, these conversations are going to continue. And so we need to stay up on AI, and we'll see some new stuff come. But at the end of the day, it's all about communicating efficiencies and maturity and lowering risk. And so we want longevity, be in that conversation, know how to illustrate to an organization what your workforce does, how your workforce is utilized, whether it be your FTEs, your contractors, your consultants, or your managed service providers. You need to be able to illustrate what everybody's doing. You need to be able to support how what they're doing is maturing your programs and how that is lowering risk. And this is where I've spent the last 2.5 years of my life working with executives and providing the visualization. It is the number one reason, the lack of this is the number one reason why when we had to do layoffs because capitalism shows its ugly head and people just lay off and the wrong people or too many people or, people that weren't low performers, it's because we don't have that insight. And so that's just one piece of what has gone on is to when we're not strong in this conversation, we don't have a lot of control over our talent and how long we get to keep them, what we get to do with them, how we're going to develop and train them. So I'd like to see people really focusing on the conversation of explaining what your spend of people, which is all those things, even your MSSP is people, and what you're getting out of it and how you're going to impact the business. When you can be in those conversations and you can guide the business in those conversations, you'll always have longevity.
Thank you, Deidre. So you just got about 1,000 gold nuggets in about a couple of minutes. So thank you so much, right? So yeah, so what do we hear, right? Quantification, visualization, telling the story, justification, being able to articulate the depth and this breadth of the operational area that you're supporting, and being able to be in that trusted advisor role to help them understand and take advantage of the opportunities and or fill a gap. So thank you so much, Deidre. Yeah, so let's move to Shelley, please. And what are you seeing that really highlights emerging technologies or roles that women and or men should focus on to future-proof their career, Shelley?
Yeah, I think Deidre did a really good job of capturing what those roles are. Last week I was at a conference, a HIMSS conference in Vegas, me and 45,000 other people, looking at healthcare and technology and what does that mean. And I was, walking around all the exhibit halls and seeing all that's happening. And I think one of the things for me that stands out as we look at, where are we going? What skills should we have? I think understanding the potential societal impacts of emerging technologies and advocating for responsible development is going to be key. And, women, we tend to be the gatekeepers of a lot of things. And I think this is really an opportunity for women to shine. When you look at trafficking, when you look at every child in a school has a cell phone now, that somebody on the other side can track that child, where they go to school, what games they play on their phone. They're tracking them all. I was just exposed to some information on that. And human trafficking is becoming such a big industry now. And I'm like, technology has made it easier for those people. And when we look at healthcare, technology is going to make it easier, but it may also create some concerns and some problems in society. So as you're developing, stronger technical skills, looking at the ethical implications of where we're going, I think is another key part of technology and working in technology. We need someone there to be gatekeepers of what we're doing.
Thank you so much, Shelley. Yeah, so it's a great continuum that you've shared with our attendees in the policy and the governance and the ethics, as well as what can you do if you're in an environment where you're not hearing about those concerns and or risks. So thank you, Shelley.
Hey, Rhonda, we have a couple of questions that I'll kind of meld into one.
Yes.
And it has to do with, what advice do you have for people that want to transition to cybersecurity? Should they start over, or are there professions that will allow for transferring, to start without starting at entry level? And then on top of that, Lorraine asks about, where people are using AI to review job applications. How do we highlight what we need to do to get past all that?
People use AI to do job interviews now.
I would fail.
Well, that's why I say, I think we're heading towards a world where if you want to be noticed, you need to be where people are. You know, I'm at the point where I tend to go to live conferences because I want to be with people. It's really hard because a lot of my work day is in my computer. So to go to a conference for the weekend in my computer, it's like, that's not really exciting. I'd rather go where the people are. So, you know, when you look at resumes, it's hard because you're right. There are resumes and I had somebody I referred who had lost their job to somebody to join an organization that he leads, and he's like, oh, can you send me her resume? And I said, I didn't know you were hiring. He said, I am so tired trying to hire people. It's exhausting. So if you can give me people that you know, I'll talk to them because I know that that's probably a good lead. So what you have on your resume is important, but who you're talking to and where you're getting your exposure is also important.
I'd love to comment on the boomerang as well, the boomerang question, because I think that's key. I think we forget how young cybersecurity is in terms of a career field. Boomerang should not start over. Let me repeat. Do not start over. You don't need to start over from your salary standpoint. You don't need to start over from your education standpoint. Cybersecurity is way more than IT security nowadays. It is an ecosystem, which means I don't care if you're an accountant, if you're a lawyer, if you are a data scientist, if you are admin, you have the ability to start building in cyber capability where you're at and bring the strengths and the value that you have already obtained over the years of experience to cybersecurity. I think shout out to Glenn. I noticed earlier and I took note in the chat. Glenn, I think you had said the comment about ask your boss to add cybersecurity functions to your job. So that you can start using that as experience. And I thought that was a wonderful recommendation. So I want to at least mention that here. Do not start over. I have so many women that I talk to. The one that comes to mind is a woman approached us on one of the webinars and she's like, so I've got my master's degree in cyber, but I'm a CFO and my company won't let me transfer over to the cybersecurity group unless I accept significantly less, like going back to starter level cybersecurity salaries. And she's like, I just don't know what to do. And I'm like, no, you need to be adding cybersecurity to your CFO capabilities and charging people more, not starting your salary over. But I think that's where earlier we were talking about perfection. Oftentimes perfection, it's what Shelley said was great. It's great to be a perfectionist. Don't let that stand in your way, right? Don't let it stop you from going further. But if you're a boomerang, come on over to cybersecurity. We need you. You'll get paid better. You'll love your job more. And Deidre, perhaps you have something to add because I know you deal with boomerangs all the time.
I mean, there's just no substitute for great communication skills. That's it. Everything's going to come down to your words, and that's digitally, verbally. And so I think you nailed it. I see all day long the disconnects that happen between, like, just language. And that's why we have to speak a common language. We all have to speak cybersecurity, taxonomy, and then solve problems. And so, yeah, I'm 1,000% on the communication skills for me.
Well, I hope that answers the questioner's question. And I think we'll move on now to our next question. And that's, let's start with Shelley, please. And so it's really about, how do you see AI, cyber, data science, et cetera, shaping the future of the tech industry? So what forcing functions are you seeing occurring, Shelley?
Well, certainly AI, as we see it today, cybersecurity and data science are going to dramatically shape the future of the tech industry, just by enabling automated, proactive threat detection. Personalized user experiences are everywhere now. Data-driven decision-making with AI acting as the core technology to analyze massive data sets. Enhanced threat detection and response in cybersecurity is going to be key for individuals, allowing for, you know, immediate mitigation actions and proactive defense strategies to occur. Proactive predictive analytics are becoming more and more important. As I said, the personalized user experience, that's something that we can, everything we do from, you know, when you travel, just think how your travel life has changed for those of you who travel. Maybe I travel like way too much some days, and now I can almost go to the airport and walk straight on the plane. You know, everybody's taking my picture and seeing my eyeballs, and everything is becoming so much easier in my life. They even, you know, they almost say, "Welcome to the airport, Shelley," as I walk through the door now. So that is where we're heading, in this AI, you know, cybersecurity, data science world. And I say, you know, I remember early conversations, especially in the school systems, you know, the younger generations, where they were saying, you know, we're not going to allow any of this in schools. We're not even going to allow like cell phones in schools. Some schools don't allow cell phones now. And I'm just like, but that is our life. That is what their world is going to look like. We need to figure out some other things, yes, but we need to embrace AI. And that's where it goes back to that ethical conversation. What does that look like as we move forward and embrace it? And what role do we want to play in that?
Thank you. I think you raised fantastic points, right? That the technologies are going to shape the future iterations of the technology. But to your point also, right? It's for us to consider the implications, especially generationally, right? With regard to the decisions that we're making today. So thank you, Shelley.
I just
Okay,
wanted
Dean.
to do a time check. We've got about 10 minutes left.
Fantastic. Okay, so we will pitch this one back to Deidre to finalize our response on this question. How do you see AI, cybersecurity, and data science shaping the future of the tech industry?
Holy moly, you know, it's the I am undone. And again, another big one from the perspective of shaping technology versus shaping life. I mean, AI is bringing everything, making everything uncertain. Everything's questionable. What's real? What's not real? Because fake looks so real now. So for me, it's that application of AI that is going to cause the most harm, the most distraction, the most destruction. And organizations and governments are going to have to really figure out how they're going to defend the truth. Is what scares me the most about AI, and where I see the most amount of work and jobs, and, you know, proving something's fake, proving something's not fake. I mean, this is the world we're in now.
Thank you. Yes, and Deidre, thank you, because you're right. It touches every aspect of our lives, right? No matter where, organizationally, home, community, educationally, etc. So thank you, yes, for raising that. Yeah. From an awareness standpoint, and for really putting that forward with regard to the opportunity space that exists from a career and a technological standpoint, right? So maybe we have our budding entrepreneurs out there that you are driving awareness on, Deidre. Yes. Okay, now I will turn this back over to Leanne to round out our question base, I believe.
Okay, great. And I know we have other questions coming in, so maybe we'll try to keep these a little shorter, and yet the topics are so important. So just want to touch on the importance of mentorship in terms of what role has mentorship played in your career, and how can aspiring professionals find mentors? So Jessica, let's start with you.
I'm going to take an alternative route again, because I have had mentors, I'll say that, and it's been wonderful. Particularly allies who have opened up the door, particularly in forcing me to learn business aspects that I needed to learn at that point in my career. But I would actually, again, go back. I think Shelley said the battle team. I call it my advisory board, my tribe. As a startup, as a small business, you've got to have an advisory board, et cetera. I would say as a human being, as a security professional or IT or tech professional, you should have your own advisory board. So don't look for just one mentor, or don't look for just only a formal mentorship, but start building the people that you trust to go to for certain advice on certain topics, so that you have that advisory board that you can rely on throughout your career, based on what you need at that point. I think that there are a lot of wonderful organizations that my fellow peers here could talk about on mentorship much better than I could, but build your advisory board.
Great. And Shelley, would you like to add?
Yeah, well, I believe in having mentors. I believe in having coaches. I coach and mentor myself. And I'm going to tell you, there's just times in your life where you need someone to get you over the hurdle. So some people get to the hurdle and they stop. Somebody asked the question, should I start all over? Nope, you shouldn't start all over. Now you need to go find someone that's going to help you figure out, then how do I get over that obstacle? And so I've always had mentors or coaches for specific reasons. At one point, I was leaving a job as a VP in an organization because I did not feel that I could do anything more for them. I also knew if I quit that job, everybody that I knew would think I was nuts because I was walking away from a very influential role, high-paying salary, great job. One of those things where everyone says, well, she's got the world by the tail. And I thought, I need to know how to handle that before I do it. So I hired myself a coach and I had a mentor to get me through that decision-making process. I had a deadline when I was going to do it, and we got there. And it was great and it was wonderful. But I knew that was important for me to get through that. So I think when you're looking at life and there's something you want to do, and I don't care what it is, I wanted to have tea with the Queen. I got to have tea with Princess Diana and Charles. I didn't get the Queen, but I got pretty darn close. Never give up on those things. Just figure out what you want to do and go find people that are going to push you, prompt you, ask you great questions to allow you to get there, or figure out you want to make a U-turn and you really don't want that. Because sometimes you think you want something, and as you start to discover what it is and what it includes, you don't want it. When I was a nurse and the new nurses came to the floor for the first time and realized they had to empty bedpans, they didn't want to be a nurse anymore. Their vision of a nurse did not include doing bedpans. They left. So in life, I say, find a mentor, find someone that's going to help you in your career, with skill development, networking opportunities, people that are going to help build your confidence and where you're going. Leverage LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a great tool for people. If you see somebody on there that has a great role and you're like, I think I'd like to do something like that, you know what? Just ask them, send them a message in LinkedIn and say, I'm interested in what you do and would like to learn more about it. Most people I know want to help people that want to be better or be like them or grow. Most people are kind. And so if you just enter the world knowing most people are kind and ask, you should be okay.
Great. And do you just want to touch upon then, Shelley, just taking it to the next step in terms of how people can build their professional networks? Because you just talked about LinkedIn. Are there some other suggestions since you talked about conferences and so on?
Yeah, you know what? I think building your network means knowing what's going, and you can go to a bourbon tasting event even. You may not like bourbon, you may not know anything about bourbon, but go to a bourbon tasting event and just see who's there. Because there could be some cyber people there or somebody that works at, an organization that you might want to work at one day. So set yourself up so that you're going to places where you're going to meet people who are different than the ones you see every day now. So I use, LinkedIn is a great tool that I use now. I certainly go to a lot of conferences. I go to conferences that are not cyber conferences. I go to all kinds of different conferences. I go to women's conferences. I go to conferences on home building because technology is in home building too, right? I go to conferences on wellness. I go to all kinds of I go to bourbon tasting things and wine tasting and all those things, book clubs. It's really important that I think in today's world, that you just get out and you explore what's out there and who's out there and who's doing what. You know, I sat on the plane one time next to some guy, and I'm always very friendly. He's asking me about my phone, and I said, oh, I hate getting a new phone because everybody's always got the best deal for me. And then I always feel like I didn't get the best deal at the end. That's the perfectionist in me, right? And he said, later in the flight, he said, well, you know, I'm the VP of your carrier, and I'd like to help you with that. And I'm like, yeah, right. I didn't give him my information. And at the end of the flight, he gave me his card, and he was the VP of my mobile carrier. And he said, if you send me your number, I'll have somebody on my team look after you and your cell phone needs, and you'll get the best deal. And I've had him in my life for the last 8 years, and I've got the best deal. So you never know who you're going to run into and how they're going to add to your life. But I have a big thing that, you know, life is a daring adventure or nothing at all. Take the adventure every time.
Great. Thank you. In the essence of time, Carol, I know we have one last, I think, polling question to make sure that people get their credit for being here. So it's
Yeah.
about networking. So do you want to
Yeah,
launch that?
we'll launch that one.
Okay.
And while that's launching, we do have a question. I know William has been very patient. And we've danced around AI. And in fact, some people in the chat were saying that, you know, they went into an interview that they know the plan was to evaluate their interview via AI. So we've talked about, you know, having your application evaluated by AI, but it can be extended from there. So I don't know, implications, suggestions.
I wouldn't be interviewed by I mean, when I go to a job interview, I want to interview them. I want to know if I want to work in that environment. Does their culture match my culture? Who am I going to be reporting to? What are their values? So a job interview is 2 ways, and I don't know how you do an interview with a bot. And I wouldn't apply for a job where I'm working with a bunch of bots, because that wouldn't be a whole lot of fun for me. Well, maybe it would. I don't know. I don't think so, though.
Okay. Do you want to close the
Yeah.
poll?
Yeah, there you go. And I did set this poll up for selecting multiples, so people may have selected more than one.
Great. So are there any other questions that you see? You know, I think we had one other question, but it was on technology, and I think we've talked about that. So, and
Yeah.
trends. So let's just see what else is in the Q&A.
Yeah, we just answered the last one. I know we're at time, folks, but if you want to stay and do some Q&A with our panel, you're welcome to do that.
Okay. Well, and I certainly want to say, I mean, thank you so much to our panelists. I mean, it was so insightful. You know, thank you so much for you sharing very freely and being transparent and authentic in terms of your responses. And I mean, amazing audience. Like, I think almost everybody is still here. So obviously they found it very informative. So thank you so much to ISACA LA, to Patricia and to Carol and to the team for hosting this panel tonight. I thought it was really good. So thank you, everybody.
No, thank you all. It's been a privilege getting to hear your journeys and your tips and tricks, if you will, right? Very helpful. It's interesting that we had a lot of folks today that were experienced. You know, it doesn't matter where you are in your career. We all are having challenges, you know, with the changes that are about in our various careers. A lot of thank yous coming in. I'm still looking for if there's any other questions. If y'all have any questions, please feel free.
Carol, I might add a question. It was one that we had as a backup, and it might be helpful to this audience. It was,
Oh, sure.
okay, good. It was, what role do ethics and governance play in the rapidly evolving fields, or these are rapidly evolving fields, and how can women lead in these areas? So getting a little bit into the governance and ethics piece, which we touched on a little bit. So I don't know if anyone had anything that they'd like to share about that and their perspective there and the importance of that.
I
I'm
think you
thinking
have to
AI
use your
is
voice.
obvious.
I think it's really important that you don't sit back and watch. That you know, raise awareness Security awareness is key, but also awareness of, you know, what all this technology is doing us and what people are using it for. What, you know, there was a car company that wanted to be able to track where everybody went when they used this certain car company for rides. So the community was going to put a policy that they'd be able to know which areas of their community were getting these ride pickups most often. And I thought, I really don't want them tracking that I've used some vehicle to come and pick me up and take me to the airport every second Monday. And the city where I live don't need to know that information. So when you're listening on the news to policy that's being created, use your voice and start conversations, because people aren't aware, and all of a sudden it's like, oh shoot, you know, they passed that, you know, that's a rule now, that's how we're going to live. And it's like, they're allowed to take all that information about you and use it in this way. So I think just the awareness, and probably policy and governance, and every level of government is looking at cybersecurity and privacy. Just being, you know, that's one of those magazines and one of those conferences you can go to just to learn.
Jess, I noticed you answered the question in the chat, but it's an interesting one, is how is DEI going to change things? Yeah, I'm twisting it a little bit from what Christiana asked, but. If anybody else has anything to add on that.
I think that there's an immediate change, and there's like more of a long-term change, if you will. The immediate change is more disruptive, I would say, to try to keep it a little apolitical here. It's very disruptive depending on your organization, how you're leveraging the DEI programs and how they're playing a role in your company, and to what extent. But the majority of companies that I've been working with and talking with, they're just modifying the programs. They are modifying them to be more workforce development. They're looking at, you know, what is working, what's not, and doing some slight modifications. Some of these DEI programs are critical to the businesses, and some of them are, you know, more of nice. I hate to say it's nice to have, but we're keeping it real here, right? They don't. They kind of keep the program because they think they should, whereas some of them are, you know, critical to their hiring. And I think the ones that are critical are finding ways around this. I think longer term things will smooth out, and we'll find different ways to accomplish the same goals.
Thank you, Jess, very much. I did launch a little mini poll. I know that Larry's going to be sending you all surveys after the fact, or a more formal survey, but I always like to try and get some quick feedback before people sign off. And, you know, if they got inspiration from the session, and over 90% were inspired either directly with their career or maybe take action in some other way, but found inspiration from having you all today. So I really want to thank you for that.
Awesome.
They might change their mind later, but you got the quick answer, right?
Totally.
I think as far as DEI, I think it's really up to those of us who want to be leaders and change and make the world a better place to keep it on the table.
Amen.
Like when I go to a meeting, I want to see more people that look like me and the community that I live in at that meeting. I just do. They bring there's a better perspective, there's better conversations. And I see it personally as my role to keep it at the table. So I'll do that. And some days I'll probably get hit over the head by somebody for saying, "Shelley, stop." I'm like, no, until this table looks like the people that live in my community, I won't stop. Nobody deserves to be left behind.
Not when they're saying there's a cyber workforce gap, right? You know.
Yeah, for so many reasons, right? Like our communities are, you know, made of different people with different skill sets, different life experiences. Even from this call, all these people on the call had different life experiences. We had different, you know, journeys into cybersecurity. And that's important to how decisions get made. So You
I
can't
would go
deny
at
it.
it very similarly, but I would say it's a competitive advantage. If you're not diversifying, I win.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
Yeah.
Diversification helps you represent your consumer base. It helps you take a new look. Take cybersecurity and let's just talk risk. You can take a man and a woman and ask them what are the risks they see in front of them, have them do a SWOT analysis of the architecture, et cetera. They're both going to come up with different perspectives. If you are a business leader, you want both. You want to
Yes.
understand the full scope of risk, and women bring a different perspective. Now, the problem that we have and the challenge that we have is that in order for women to be part of this community, we need to also recognize that they need different ladders and pathways into this community. And that's where a lot of the programs, such as the women's networks and the women's organizations and everything, provide a lot of value because they understand the needs of the women that that helps them get into this community. And I would point at the conversation in this very specific webinar tonight on perfection. The different perspectives on the word perfection really demonstrates what we're talking about. Absolutely, perfection in your job and doing it right is important. And I think that that is a very masculine view, if you will. Not a male view, but a masculine view. I would say that from a women's perspective, what we were trying to look, or a feminine perspective, is the perfection stopping you from taking the job, right? And that's where we were trying to stress perseverance and being able to make mistakes and accepting less than perfection to continue to move on. These are the things that women's talk about, and that help to encourage more women to take risks and go after those jobs and put themselves into those leadership promotion opportunities. And that's where we really need some of these programs. I don't care if you call it DEI, you call it women's programs, et cetera. The fact is we need them for competitive advantage and for national security. So they're going to happen.
You're here.
All right, folks. Anything else for the good of the order? I think we've got folks on the East Coast on this call, probably
Yeah,
ready
right.
late for dinner for sure, right? All right. Well, I don't see anything else coming in unless I missed something. All right. Well, thank you all again. Truly, what a great opportunity and honor to meet you all. And have a good night and go grab your dinner.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everyone.
Perfect,
Thank
Matt.
you.
Bye now.